They're two happy women bringing you inspiring stories, politics, pop culture, and lifestyle hacks, all with an eye to making our communities and our country a better place to live. It's the Happy Women Podcast with your hosts, Jen Horn and Katie Gorka.
Thanks for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast. I'm Jennifer Horn.
And I'm Katie Gorka.
And Happy New Year to all of you. You know, we are still in our holiday stupors, but we've got a brand new year ahead and really excited to see what 2025 is going to bring. Katie, I think the whole country is feeling a little more optimistic today. So it'll be a good year. Let's
I think we're extra happy women.
Exactly. And that's because my friend Gloria Romero is here. She joins us on this episode of Happy Women. She is the retired California Senate Majority Leader. She is Gloria 2.0 now because she is I think the best version of Gloria Romero. She's a Republican who has just switched and ditched publicly from the Democrat Party. She's also an author. The book is called Just Not That Likeable, The Price All Women Pay for Gender Bias. You can get that wherever you get your books and follow her, Gloria J. Romero. Gloria Romero, thank you so much for being here on the Happy Women Podcast. We really appreciate seeing you today.
Well, thank you. And I'm happy to be here with you. Thank you.
Oh, so let's talk about your story. You have such an interesting background. I really think it's worth talking about kind of how you got to where you are today based on the path that you took.
Okay. Well, I don't know where to begin exactly, except that I'm in a very blue California. Really, my household was solid Democrat, from FDR to my parents venerated FDR to, of course, JFK, RFK, you name it. I was really a Kennedy true blue liberal progressive, elected to the California state legislature. But along the way, I really began to challenge, even back then, the Democratic Party. I was an educator. I was a university professor, and even teaching at East LA, at Cal State LA, which is in East Los Angeles, I began to see firsthand that even the kids who did everything right and graduated and got into the university, they would arrive at really a working class college and they couldn't write. They really couldn't read. So I began to see we had a real education problem. So when I was in the legislature, I did challenge the Democratic Party. Of course, we know that the teachers union is the most powerful political force in California. And of course, has tied its hip to the Democratic Party, leading to massive school failures. So on policy, it was really the failure for the Democrats to stand up for, poor, low-income kids, really kids of all stripes who wanted to get a good education and yet were deprived because of just the politics around the Democratic Party that tied itself to academic failure. And we're seeing that today when we take a look at those statistics and numbers. So that was it on policy largely. On the politics of it, I was just appalled, even with the very poor choices that Democrats had. But I was appalled to see that, some 14 million Democratic votes were just wiped out. And basically, in Latin America, we call it the dedazo, where, the finger is like this and say, okay, this is our candidate. And they just push whoever the people had nominated and elected aside. And that's literally what we saw. But there were very few Democrats who were willing to call that out. I did, because I did believe in democracy. I do believe in a representative form of government. I've been a candidate, and I think, how would I have liked it if I did everything, the people voted for me, and I just got shoved aside because, the elites and the George Clooney actors of the world decided they didn't want us. So I fought against that. And finally, I just said, ya basta, enough, I've had it. And once Robert F. Kennedy Jr. stood up and left, I said, it's time for me to go as well and join my dear friend Leo Terrell, especially in leaving the Democratic Party and not just becoming independent, but joining the Republican Party, which I never would have done had it been like a Mitt Romney or even a George Bush. But this was a Trump-led working class coalition that put America first. And so I was proud to join. And that's why, again, I am now Gloria 2.0.
I have so many questions that I want to ask you, but on that last note, I just want to ask, tell me a little bit more. What actually was it about Trump that appealed to you? And why do you say Trump, yes, but it wouldn't have happened if it had been Bush or Romney?
Well, look, I grew up under the Vietnam War era. My family actually went to the cemetery to bury a 20-year-old from my hometown who lost his life, who was killed in Vietnam. And that stays with you forever. So I looked at Trump as somebody who was a pro-peace candidate, unlike the Democrats. For example, I saw Trump as somebody who really united people and didn't divide on the basis of race and on the basis of class. He put America first. He was great in terms of economic prosperity. And also, I think one of the first times that I really gravitated towards Trump when we saw that very horrific withdrawal from Afghanistan, and that was done for a photo op. To be there in time for 9/11 and to basically have them, Kamala and Joe stand there and say, oh, we ended the war. It was a photo op. And yet we saw, for all of the veterans who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, the Middle East, lost their lives, lost limbs, lost families, to see that happen, that botched withdrawal, it was just a travesty, a shame, I thought. And so all of these issues, in addition to that, I saw the open border. I believe in a fair pathway to citizenship, finding some sensible immigration reforms. But what they did was a complete mockery of citizenship itself. And, I'm proud to be a citizen of this country. My family is. The people I represented are proud to be citizens of the U.S. And they just, obliterated the southern border especially. So there were so many issues. One more thing I'd throw in is, I'm Latina. We have tortillas that you can only really roast on a gas stove. And I thought, over my dead, bloody hands, will you pry my gas stove out from being able to roast a good tortilla, because you can't do it in a microwave or on an electric range. So
no, the electric range does not work. We need gas. I just drilling in on that for a second, because I think one of the most interesting shifts when I go out and speak around California, you and I are in the same state, Gloria, everybody always says, oh, is the state lost? And I always say the Latino voter is going to save California, because I really see a lot of movement in that demographic. And I think we as a Republican Party, particularly in California, but across the country too, need to do a better job with outreach, because you saw what President Trump did. He received great support from the Latino community. And I think what Democrats really kind of just blew it on is they thought these open border policies would somehow appeal to Latino voters. It instead had the complete opposite impact. So where do you see that demographic moving in the coming years?
I share that with you. I mean, I think that the Latino vote is going to be and has been very, very important. We've even seen the flipping of Democratic districts to become Republican, led by a veteran, somebody who served in the U.S. military, Jeff Gonzalez in here in California. And so I think we'll continue to see that as well. But Latinos are a very patriotic community. I think also because I'm going to say we have experienced some chapters of segregation in California and in American history, but we've never given up hope and faith in this country. There is a real belief that there is a right for us to make sure that if we do our job, this is really the greatest country in the world. So Latinos are going to be very supportive, and they saw that with President Trump. The Democrats were very cynical, trying to even redefine who we are, making up and calling us Latinx. Like, what the hell is that? We are not. I think they were trying to X us out of American history, I suppose. But we are a very patriotic community. We believe in this country. If you take a look at the service records in any war, Latinos are amongst the first to sign up, to volunteer, to be drafted, to go serve, and among some of the highest casualties as well. And so I think it's something that we believe in, fighting and defending our nation. I think also, too, that Latinos really saw through the ugliness of the open border and how as a supposed effort to try to reach this Latinx vote that they thought that they would say, just fling open the borders, it really backfired on the Democrats. Like, that's not what we want. But there was so much of an attack on the family, for example. Look, you know what? I call myself a feminist, but I believe in motherhood. And I think don't ever call me a birthing person. I am a mother, a madre. If you take a look at Mexican culture, we don't even just have one Mother's Day. We celebrate 2 Mother's Days. So this whole thing about just erasing motherhood, family, children, not even being able to say what is a woman, this really backfired on the Democrats and really should be erased from our vernacular very quickly.
So I want to go back to an earlier point in your career, because I'm so interested in the fact that you had a professional career and you decided to run for office. And I think this is the challenge for so many people. I'm going to say, I think, especially for a lot of women, they feel that they're not qualified, or, they'll say, well, who am I to run for office? I would just love to know, how hard was it? How much of a leap, I guess I would say, was it for you to make the decision to run for office?
Well, and I agree with you. I think women typically, are some of our strongest candidates, but oftentimes we are discouraged. We're told to stand down, to wait our turn. I've been told that as well in the past. And really not a lot of support for women to run for office. But I grew up basically supporting candidates, and many of them were male candidates. There were some women candidates as well, but I did all of the envelope stuffing in those days. Door knocking, voter registration. I really believed in that and did a great deal of that as well. And then because I was in education, I was very active in my community, really reaching out on, the promissory note of education. I call it the key to the American dream. And I would see it. I knew what it had done for me. My mother had a 6th grade level of education. I have a PhD. And when I went to the legislature, I became the chair of the education committee. I became the majority leader of the California State Senate. And that was because of education and its promise. I wanted to make sure that that's accessible to all, and that we don't have much of the academic failure of the school system itself. So in that sense, then it was actually she was a teacher at East LA College, a professor. She was actually active with the American Federation for Teachers there. And she called me one day and said, Gloria, I think you should run. At that point, it was for the Community College Board of Trustees. And I remember that day I was cleaning my closet. It was the middle of summer. I was cleaning my closet. And when she called me, I dropped that cloth and it just clicked. And I said, yes, I will run. So I encourage women to not even wait for that phone call. And you can clean the closet if you want, but take a look at it elsewhere, because there's a lot of cleaning house that we have to do in the political realm. But oftentimes it does take women encouraging other women to step up, stand up. There's more to us. And it was a battle. I had a lot that was thrown against me, a disbelief that I could win. But it's something that I would encourage women to do. Lots of challenges. It's hard running for office. I respect anybody, win or lose, that runs for office. It takes a toll on oneself, one's family, one's children. The most horrid things get said about you. And one thing that I really encourage us is that even if we dislike a particular candidate, to refrain from making any derogatory comments about how somebody looks or sounds, or dare I say even laughs, because unfortunately, personal characteristics get thrown at women much more so than male candidates.
And I think it's obviously a much more educated argument when you talk about real differences with someone as opposed to just the surface matter. So I think it is so much more important for the national conversation. So I think you're right about that. And I also think that you hit a nerve when it comes to education. You saw what was going on. Things have really devolved in our home state of California. You've got the government really trying to step in and remove parents from the equation. The silver lining, however, is that it has encouraged a lot of amazing women to step up and run for office and run for school boards. The mom movement is huge in California. we've got a new law coming into effect that says that California is going to prevent schools from notifying parents about gender changes. There is a lot of fight back to that, Gloria. Do you think that there is enough momentum from the moms and dads and parents in this state to push back against Gavin Newsom and his cronies who would love to erase the family?
It's no secret. The world's unpredictable. One moment, everything's fine, and the next, the power's out and the cell towers are down. But with a satellite phone from sat123.com, you don't have to be cut off from the world. No matter where you are or what's happening, Sat123 keeps you connected. Whether you're deep in the mountains, on the road, or dealing with a natural disaster, your satellite phone will work when nothing else does. This is about being prepared. Sat123.com is family owned, American built, and focused on keeping you safe. They understand that in today's world, connection is more than convenience. It's essential. So here's the deal. Go to sat123.com and use code Katie for $25 off your first purchase. Don't get caught off guard. Stay connected. Stay prepared with Sat123.
Well, I think make no doubt about it. The machine in California is huge. It's powerful, it's oppressive, and it will be ready to move. And we've seen how it has moved very stealthily. Look, as majority leader serving in Sacramento I think I was there for 12 years, I saw the power of the machine, and it's invisible, so that your typical voter will get the glossy candidate statement. They'll get pretty pictures about how people are going to stand up and fight for your rights. It's really blah, 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 blah stuff. And so I think we have to be ready for that. Is there enough momentum? I think we need more. I really think that even though the MAGA, particularly led by MAGA, that this movement has been successful. We've seen Trump in office, the Senate, the Congress as well, under Republican leadership now, but take nothing for granted. I think parents need strong support. And also for the troops to show up and to be there, because it's very easy to have that machine roll in and then basically roll over people. It takes money, it takes voter registration, good candidates, the willingness to stand up. But if you go to any particular school board meeting, and I go to a lot, there's very few people there. And really the only ones who typically are there are the unions, the teachers' unions. And so that's why I do call it's more a public work system than a public education system. But we have seen victories. We witnessed a recall of some very woke elected officials in San Francisco, for example, but that's too far too few. So I think that we've got to, replenish, regenerate, recommit ourselves, and to do more across the country. And I do believe that starting at school boards are some of the most easily accessible to parents and families. But there's a pushback, and we've got to be ready to defend parents against these very heinous laws that seek to remove ourselves and our rights as parents and cut us out of our own children's lives.
So you've been an incredibly powerful voice in speaking out against the unions and speaking out against their sort of undue power. One of your quotes that I loved, you called them the sugar daddy of many of the politicians. It's so perfect, such a perfect description. But I also came away feeling like it is daunting. It is a daunting task to try to tackle their power. You've been at this fight for a long time. I guess I just really want to know, do you feel like we're getting anywhere with this? Do you feel like there is hope on the horizon?
I do. And it is, I consider myself to be the eternal optimist, not quite the man of La Mancha, but I think as women, as happy women who, if you believe that education is the key to the American dream, and I do believe that it is, that we have an imperative, a moral imperative to fight for, quality education. But you have to take a look at who's standing in the way. And even with the unions overall, I will point out that I think much of it are the executive boards, not even the rank and file, because many rank and file teachers in the classrooms recognize that there are some real problems in how education is delivered in this country, but are tied basically because of teacher contracts and really some of the omnipresence of the executive boards and teachers unions overall. But I think we have seen some good signs. I remain very just inspired. I always remember, and it's there in your location, right? That father who went to the school board meeting just to get answers, and they ended up tussling him to the ground, arresting him. That image is one that really has seared in my mind. And I think it's an image that we should never forget. That father is an American hero, I believe, and should be. We should respect and admire him that he went there, unlike so many other parents who don't go. And many are just tied up. They can't get there to the board meetings. But it is a fight, but it doesn't mean that we can't keep trying. For example, here in California, I pointed out when I was talking about why I didn't support Kamala Harris, one of the things that I saw was that here she was, when she was the district attorney of San Francisco, her claim to fame was that she did this truancy bill. And if you look at it, you might think, okay, maybe that's not such a bad thing. But what she was really doing was going after high poverty, mostly African-American mothers who, for a number of reasons, could not or were not sending their kids to school. In the meantime, we took a look at the numbers, and these were chronically failing schools year after year. The district wouldn't turn them around. The state wouldn't turn them around. Then fast forward, she fails up to become the attorney general for the state of California. And what happens there was that in the meantime, I think there were 13 kids in California, kids. Now, they were supported by parents and a pro bono law firm. This is the Vergara lawsuit. And they challenged the state of California and basically saying, hey, California, you've got some pretty crappy laws on your books that really are preventing us from really learning and moving forward and turning over mediocrity. The kids won. They won in a major Los Angeles Superior Court. But what did Kamala Harris do? She was hitched to the teachers union. She knew she wanted to fail up to the Senate. So what did she do? On their behalf, she joined with, to defend the state of California against these kids and their victory, and had that court case overturned. So thank you, Kamala Harris, for protecting these outdated, outmoded teacher tenure laws in California that basically say just show up and breathe, and it doesn't matter if you're effective in the job or not. And at the expense of kids who had the courage to stand up and fight. That was Kamala Harris.
There were so many. I mean, I actually made a list of all the things that Kamala Harris did in California that impacted the people that she said she was there to protect, including children and including women and including minority groups and everybody that she would consider to be marginalized. She hurt them in big ways for her next job, essentially. And I think that's why I felt so strongly about her not becoming the first female president of the United States, because for me, and maybe it shouldn't, but it does matter. And those history making moments, I want to go to people who are truly worthy, I think. And she's done a lot to hurt. So I guess my question next to you, Gloria, is what is her next role? Because her next step, I really believe she's coming back to California and she wants to run for governor. And sadly, there are a lot of Democrats in the race already. We're expecting some big announcements from a couple of key Republicans as well in the new year. I believe that a lot of these Democrats will step aside for her and start a coronation, but it's going to be hard. She proves herself to not be a great candidate, but it is California. What does her future hold in your mind?
Well, her future will continue, I think, to be bright in her own mind. I think that I had heard that she's
not true for all of us.
I had heard that she's writing a book. We'll see. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But She will not have the sheen that she had before. I do believe that we shouldn't take her, that we should take her seriously. I think that if she wants to run for governor, I think that a lot of the others will move out of the way. Some might not. And it might set up a very interesting combat between, for example, the lieutenant governor, who herself is a very wealthy female as well, who might just say, I'm not going to step aside for you. So bring it on. Let's see. I kind of hope that it will. But
you know who I am interested in, not to interrupt you, but I know someone who will not step out of the way, and that is Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of Los Angeles. He's trying to paint himself as a more moderate Democrat, and I can't wait for those debates. If she does step into it, I think they would actually, even though he's aged quite a bit, I think it would be interesting to see her be held accountable on some things.
Right. And I think that it will be interesting. I think because she lost so badly, she was a terrible candidate. Let's face it, she was a terrible candidate. The whole administration's been a failure. As a border czar, she created single-handedly the disaster of the border, much of the crime wave against women ourselves, not being able to go out for a run or being fearful of being assaulted or raped or murdered. I mean, my God, could we not speak up at least and have some sympathy for those victims and their families? But it will be interesting to see. But it shouldn't be considered to be a free ride. She's not going to get the coronation that she got when she ran for the presidency. And I do think that it will be fun to see Governor Newsom having to face, the failed border czar. So it's kind of like, Godzilla versus King Kong, the battle of the bad Democrats. But I'd love to see his ego being smashed even further. So, stay tuned, get the popcorn out. But take her seriously. I think she would get a lot of support. It is California, but not without a fight and without people recognizing and hopefully saying that, look, should not be a throwaway position. It shouldn't be a consolation prize. You lost the presidency, so we'll give you the governorship. But like I said, it's a powerful machine, and it will be rolling in the streets around us in the upcoming future.
So I'm sitting in Fairfax County, Virginia. We have a really significant Latino population here. Some of our most vibrant members in the Fairfax GOP are our Latino members because, in many respects, because they come from countries where they experienced communism or terrible corruption firsthand. Some of our best and most active members are from Venezuela, Cuba, El Salvador. So they're definitely with us. We've got those members. We've got them in our leadership, but we still have an issue here in Fairfax. And I imagine it's the same in California, where still the majority of Hispanics are voting Democrat. What are we doing wrong? What can we as Republicans do to help communicate that our values align with the values of many of our Latino citizens? What are we doing wrong? What can we do better?
I don't know that it's what we're doing wrong, but I think it's what we haven't done enough of. And I think voter outreach is very critical, voter registration. We also need some good, strong candidates. And they don't have to be Latino. I think it does help quite a bit. But also like a candidate like President Trump, who spoke to everybody, including the Latino community, was not afraid to, I don't want to say wear his heart on his sleeve, but he spoke from his heart. There was an authenticity. There was also a bravado about him that I think Latinos do appreciate and do like and are willing to say, this man is going to keep me and my family safe. And we shouldn't be afraid to say that. And so I think we have to really take a look at that. I'm excited about J.D. Vance as his pick as well, because I think, and I had read Hillbilly Elegy years before, and I had just been overwhelmed. I thought, my gosh, because here's somebody who understood what it means to face challenges, poverty, addiction, families that were really broken. And so the poorest of the poor. And it took basically a blue collar billionaire who understood working people. And I really think that's the key to it, is understanding a working class, understanding that we are somos americanos. It doesn't matter what the name are, what the hyphen is, Latino Americans, African American, Asian American, whatever we are, that we are Americans and that we're valued for that. But it takes a lot of outreach overall. I also believe very strongly that the churches, not only the Catholic churches, but increasingly evangelical churches as well, are very, very important. And education is key, because that machine will generate and whip forward to have people go out and just say, okay, vote on these teachers or these candidates that the teachers union wants. So we have to have a willingness to combat that. So I do think that focusing on education, on children, on quality school choice, on jobs, safety, fighting crime, those are going to be very critical for us to do. But like the Scott Presslers or the Charlie Kirks in Arizona or in Pennsylvania, it's going to take hard work. And unless we do that, we're not going to reach those magic numbers overall. So Latinos are there. It was Ronald Reagan who actually said, remember, he said something like, Latinos are Hispanics are Republican. They just don't recognize it yet. And I think it really takes the strong, not only the messaging, but a candidate with warmth and heart and the strength to stand up and say, I'm fighting for you too. And we will respond.
And I think it's about the candidates who can identify with people. Trump was the billionaire who could identify with the working class, because I think they trusted him to know that he wasn't going into government to enrich himself. And I think there are a lot of people who are awake right now at the fact that they've been played by Democrats and Republicans for a lot of years. People who just want to enrich themselves and their families. And I think people who are serious about doing the work will connect with those voters and bring us success. Okay, in our final moments here, I got to know what's next for you. But before we get there, we have not given Newsome any chance at a Gloria Romero takedown. So I think it's so interesting. The Democrats, after they get really kind of shellacked by President Trump, they're at a crossroads. Everybody's scratching their head. What went wrong? What happened? How did this go wrong? How did Trump win? How did we lose? Are they going to double down on stupid, or are they going to hear the words of the Democrat voter? And if you look at Newsome, he's doubling down on stupid. He's getting ready to go to war with Trump. He's not listening to the voters in his state. Is he going to be alone in that? Do you think there are some Democrats who are going to try to course correct, or is it going to be all about battling big bad Trump in the next 2 years?
Well, that is the question. But already we're seeing the lineup. You have the Attorney General, the wannabe governor for California as well, basically saying that he and the governor are working together to Trump-proof California, whatever that may mean. We've seen Democrats in San Diego who are also creating not only sanctuary cities, but super sanctuary cities. So thus far, I think we're not seeing a turnaround. There is no self-examination. There is no reflection that is going on. I think there is the doubling down on stupidity. But then there are some other Congress members, like, for example, Ro Khanna in the Bay Area, who I think has expressed some of, I think, good insight. But at the end of the day, he still wants a future in the Democratic Party. So I think it will continue.
Fetterman. He's huge example.
Yeah, he's actually the most logical and sensible of all. And I think, if anything, as 2028 comes around, I don't think it's going to be Newsome. I don't think it's going to be Kamala Harris. I think if the Democrats were smart, they would be looking at Fetterman, quite frankly, there. But
he's their Trump, actually. I think that's true.
Yeah.
But not as nicely dressed, though.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to get rid of those shorts. But I do think, though, whatever the Dems do, it's really, what will the Republicans do? So I think we have to get our own house in order. We have to really make sure that we celebrate the victory and then move forward, expanding the base. And one thing that I really recommend is that there are so many people like me. I spoke to a lot of, it took me the longest time for me finally to say, I'm out of here. I'm leaving the party. I tried, but I thought, you know what? I can't stay a Democrat any longer. It's not the truth. any longer. And so there are many Democrats, just like, that were like me, who are still Democrats. I would encourage us to reach out. I tell people, we're not a red state. We're not a blue state. We're the golden state in California. And that means that we can and we should cross the lines over and over. Reach out, just talk to people, neighbors. And I will guarantee you there will be lots of Democrats, registered Democrats, who will say this party doesn't reflect me. We should try to get them to register Republican. But even if they don't, for whatever reason, I think we still want to break bread, to meet, and to go after that vote. The other thing, too, remember, it's not just Dems and Republicans, it's also the independents, one of the fastest growing sectors, sort of the non-committed. And there's no real party organization there. So that's a tremendous base for us to reach out and to go forward to. And the Democrats, let them slink into oblivion. I really do believe that we are seeing the end of the Democratic Party. We don't have the Whigs any longer. We don't have the Confederates any longer. No parties are here to last forever. I do believe that we are on the verge of really seeing the end of the Democratic Party as we have known it.
Interesting stuff. And you've been a delight. Just in 30 seconds, Gloria Romero, what's next for you?
To celebrate New Year's Eve, to be converted by what has been, to do my part along with so many other millions of Americans to make America great again, and to be happy with you and other women across this country that we can be safe in our homes and while we jog and when we go into restrooms, and to just do our part to make this a great nation.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you so much and all of your words and wisdom. Gloria Romero, retired California Senate Majority Leader. Bright future ahead. You can pick up her book as well, Just Not That Likeable, The Price All Women Pay for Gender Bias. And follow her at Gloria J. Romero. And happy, happy, happy New Year. I cannot wait to see what 2025 brings for you and for all of us. Of course, it's going to be an exciting time. I think we're on the precipice of something very big. And we have an opportunity that needs to be taken. So thank you so much for your work. And thank you all for joining us. Happy New Year to all of you. Hope you had a great holiday season. We're going to be hitting the ground running again. Boy, oh boy, is that for sure. I think we're already feeling it. But make sure you share the Happy Women podcast with your friends. Give us those 5-star reviews. They really do help so much. And we, of course, appreciate you for all of your support. Get Katie's book. It's called Next Gen Marxism, which you can find on Amazon. You can also check her out, katiegorka.org. You can search for her on Facebook. Just search for Catherine Gorka, or on X at Gorka Katie. Look, I still remember this after the holiday break. That's pretty good. Whew. And you can find me too. I'm on social media, Jennifer Horn Radio, Instagram and Facebook, and at Jennifer Horn on X and Truth Social. And thank you all for joining us. It's another episode of the Happy Women Podcast.